See that picture behind you with the barrels? What is that?
Well, maybe it's Haberly
Okay.
Beer.
Ken will not be able to join us this morning, so we will begin. Everybody ready? I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Syracuse Industrial Development Agency Board of Directors. We'll start with a roll call of the board. I'm Kathy Murphy.
Ricky Brown.
Kirk Sonneborn.
Steve Thompson.
Thank you. Proof of notice was properly served, and we will start with our first public hearing, Northside Genesee. Eric.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
You're up, Eric.
So again, good morning to the board. Thank you all for being here. Notice of a public hearing. So notice is hereby given that a public hearing pursuant to Section 859A of the New York General Municipal Law will be held by the City of Syracuse Industrial Development Agency on this 18th day of July 2023 at 8 a.m. local time at 233 East Washington Street, Common Council Chambers, City Hall, in Syracuse, New York, in connection with the following matter. Northside Genesee Associates, LLC, or an entity to be formed, requested the agency undertake a project consisting of the acquisition of an interest in approximately 1.3 acres of improved, unless otherwise noted, real property located at the following addresses: 1219-21 East Genesee Street, 1225-27 East Genesee Street, 1231 East Genesee Street, 1237 East Genesee Street, 1301 East Genesee, 1311 East Genesee, 1317, 1323, 316 Pine Street, 224 Ashworth Place, 212-14 Ashworth Place, 210 Ashworth Place, and 208 Ashworth Place. I believe I have gotten all of the parcels. All in the city of Syracuse, New York, and constructing, including the demolition of existing structures on the land and the construction of approximately 286,080 square feet, a 5-story building for mixed use, including approximately 286 apartment units, consisting of approximately 87 studio apartments, 60 one-bedroom units, and 139 two-bedroom units. 12% of such units shall be reserved for tenants meeting the 80% area median income limits, with the balance of the units being market rate. Approximately 1,000 square feet of retail space, amenity spaces, and approximately 143 space underground parking garage, all to be located on the land. The acquisition and installation in and at the land and facility of furniture, fixtures, and equipment. The equipment and together with the land and the facility is the project facility. The granting of certain financial assistance in the form of exemptions from real property tax, state and local sales and use tax, and mortgage recording tax, in accordance with Section 874 of the General Municipal Law. Collectively, this is the financial assistance. The appointment of the company or its designee as an agent of the agency in connection with the acquisition, construction, equipping, and completion of the project facility. And finally, the lease of the land and facility by the agency pursuant to a lease agreement and acquisition of an interest in the equipment pursuant to a bill of sale from the company to the agency, and the sublease of the project facility back to the company pursuant to a sublease agreement. The company will be the initial owner and operator of the project facility. The agency will, at the above stated time and place, hear all persons with views and respects to the proposed financial assistance to the company, the proposed owner, operator, and the location of the project facility and its nature to the project.
And I just want to note for the board, following the posting and publication of the public hearing notice, there was a slight change in the unit mix. So the resolutions you have and what you're ultimately going to be asked to be considered, the unit total does not change, it's 286, but the studio apartments went from 87 to 97, and the one-bedrooms decreased by a like amount, so they went from 60 to 50 one-bedroom. The two-bedroom units remained the same.
139, right? Thank you. Before we begin the public hearing, were any written comments received regarding the project? Thank you. We will start the public hearing. I know that the applicant and several other representatives of the project are here, and maybe somebody wants, I don't know who wants to start, Chris, maybe James, who's going to start with a quick presentation, and the board can feel free to ask questions as they have them.
Good morning, James Trasher, CHA Consulting, 300 South State Street, Syracuse, New York. With me is Chris Brookshire from the Michaels Group, Wendy Luno from Costello, Cooney and Fearon, and her sidekick, which I don't know his name. You know, he's new to the operations today, but you'll probably see him around more. So I'm not going to go through. Eric did a great job of reading the project description, but just for reference, Genesee Street, Pine, Ashworth. This is the proposed apartment project, as he said, 12% affordable, the remaining at market rate. Access to the underground parking garage comes off of Ashworth. The amenity and retail space are located at each corner. We've gone through the approval process with the Planning Commission for the project. The development team is ready to commence work. We understand the provisions that would go along with it, with the City of Syracuse workforce, the WBE, MBE. Huber Brewer is going to be the contractor on the project. So this is one of the last things. We still need to obtain our building permits and site foundation permits. Those plans have been submitted. We had our intake meeting a week ago for the site and foundation work. So we anticipate, just with the timetable that Jake Dishaw has, probably 8 to 10 weeks for that. Demolition of the properties would start prior to then, so demo permits would be worked on, abatement of the building. So that is our hope to get this going. We think it's a positive benefit to the community with what's going on in the downtown area, with the potential development of Micron to the north, allowing people to live in the city in an urban area where a lot of these students and young professionals may be coming from. So if there's questions on what we're proposing to do, be more than happy to answer any of the paperwork that you have questions on. You know, Wendy did a lot of that. We did the plans, so be more than happy to answer your questions. On this look at the building, if you want to see, done by Passero. So this is how it steps with the colors, the articulation up and down the road. You know, a perspective rendering from Genesee Street. We should have put gray clouds with a little haze, but you know, you can go
Next
outside.
year.
You can go outside and see that.
And the units will have 20% set-asides in them?
Say that again?
12, excuse me,
12.
12%.
Yeah, 12%. Yeah, 20%. We got to talk about. We need to go to
Chris just
30
had a heart
years here.
So we're going to have to postpone.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Bad when it comes from the lawyer. It sounds really serious. Okay, questions, comments?
One quick question. Are any of the buildings on any of the sites currently occupied?
Currently, there are buildings that are occupied. Proper notice has been given by the development team in terms of people relocating. So they're going through that process right now. Yeah, they've owned those for a while. So, you know, just instead of having vacant properties, they've been, you know, leased since they acquired them, you know, several years ago. 4 or 5 years ago, really. 6.
So, James, the parcels, 13, I believe, 17 to 13, I believe we're on. Does the project own and control all the parcels on the entire rectangle?
Yeah, so like they either own the properties, have the capability of closing down the properties, or have contracts for closing. Some of them, you know, there's one property, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Wendy, of closing happens upon all necessary approvals. They've owned the majority of the properties. And then what's the 314, this piece of property, which is not included in the project, they are also acquiring. You know, that property owner came at the Planning Commission meeting and, you know, had been concerned. Chris Geiger, who's a partner in the project, had been trying to acquire for years, but to help remedy that situation with that property owner. They have acquired it, but it's currently not part of the application here. So, because that came in after all our site plan approvals and applications with you.
So you're going to own and control that corner parcel,
Yep.
right? 314, 316. And is the plan to leave the home there, or what is the plan, I guess is the question?
Currently at this time, and Mr. Chris Brookshire is here, there is no plan. You know, there's been conversations about like, is there a way to do something for our stormwater and all that? We've taken care of that all on our host parcel that we started with. So not to upset any of the approvals, you know, going from old zoning process to, you know, the new zoning process, we said, you know, let us get all the necessary permits and do stuff. And then if this, you know, if the house gets demolished in the future, it becomes a green space, a park, something like that for, you know, the benefit of the building, that's something we come back and talk to folks about in the future.
So the commitment is the corner will be improved to appear as it should as part of the entire project. It will not just be
Yes.
left as a
No, they, like,
abandoned parcel.
they're not going to spend the amount of money that they're spending and have an abandoned house next to it that's, you know, you have people loitering or doing different things. So this will be a benefit to the overall project.
Ernie? Okay, any other questions, comments, concerns?
I do.
So
So you're saying that's 316 Pine?
Ashworth, I think,
All right.
or Pine, yeah.
So that's in the project description.
When do you need to come up? Sorry.
Three 16 is included, which is, where's Pine? Which is there. 314 Pine is not included, and so that is the one that we are separately purchasing, and it's not included in this project.
Thank you.
Yeah, so 316 is this,
Yep.
like, right
And
there.
316 Pine is under contract, so we will be purchasing that one, and then there's 208 to 210 Ashworth, which we are also hoping to close by the end of this month, so those are all under contract.
Okay, thanks.
Comments? Concerns? Okay. Hearing none at the moment, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this project? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the project? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the project? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Hearing none, any further comments, questions, concerns to be addressed before we close the hearing? Hearing, oh, good, good. Hearing none, the hearing is closed. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the minutes from our last meeting, June 30th, 2023. Minutes were included in our packet. Are there any corrections, comments regarding the minutes? Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion.
Thank you, Ricky. Second? Second, Steve. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of resolutions for Northside Genesee Associates, the project we just heard the hearing on. There are multiple resolutions to be approved. And I guess what we'll start with is the inducement resolution, Sue?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct? Okay.
So a couple of things. You might notice that you don't have a separate seeker resolution in your agenda today. That is because this project actually was before this board back in 2019. It was a very similar project. It was slightly larger. It had a unit mix at the time of 3 units more than the units they're seeking now. It was 286. We are currently at 283. Excuse me, reverse that, I apologize. But the main difference was that the old project had unit mix up to 5 bedrooms, which obviously is no longer the case. That project never came to fruition because of the pandemic and some other issues, And so when the applicant came back to us, we just started anew with respect to a new application. However, the seeker that was done at that time, this board declared itself lead agency to undertake a coordinated review and determined that this was a type 1 action. They did review all the necessary environmental submissions and determined that this would not have a negative impact. The changes that are before you with the current project do not change or warrant any further review under that seeker determination. So we are relying on that prior seeker determination. With respect to the inducement, and that is all set out in your inducement resolution. In addition, the inducement resolution seeks a few things. One, the applicant is seeking all 3 benefits from this agency: mortgage recording tax, state and local sales and use tax, and real property tax. The reality is that they originally were seeking a mortgage recording tax. But they closed on their mortgage. Oh no, this is not that one. I am so sorry.
We're busy.
It's early.
It's early.
We're busy. It's hot.
So
It's the summer.
right. I'm like, wait, I know the number. So they are seeking all 3. They are seeking a mortgage recording tax exemption in the approximate amount of $434,300. They are seeking state and local sales and use tax in an amount not to exceed $3,225,600. They are looking to have you approve the undertaking of the project, to appoint them as your agent for purposes of completing the project. They are looking to have you authorize the execution and delivery of the agency agreement that is attached as an exhibit to your resolution. I would note for the record and for the benefit of council that if this were to be approved, that agreement needs to be signed and returned to my office within 14 days. They are also seeking a temporary appointment as your agent so that they can start ordering equipment before they are able to finalize the closing with their lender. And the resolution before you seeks that appointment through September 15th of 2023. I'm going to ask a personal favor and ask you to consider pushing that out to the end of September, because I am going to be away at a conference and I don't want their term to end while I'm away, so that if we need to close, I'm not causing them any undue harm. So if you agree to, in your consideration of this resolution, any motion, I would ask that you amend it to September 30th. But other than that, that is what the inducement resolution is looking for.
I'm assuming everyone is comfortable with an extension to September 30th. Question? Cost-benefit analysis is included? Yes.
I have a question for Sue.
Yeah.
So in the normal course, our acting in this temporary role happens all the time with us, that we step in early.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it does not cause us any liability. Should something happen to the project?
It's an excellent question. So an excellent question.
Can I get my wife on the?
I'll never tell her. So when someone requests and you authorize the temporary appointment, the company is required to do a few things. They have to pay 1/4% of your administrative fee in order to get the benefit. They have to pay your legal fees to date. They have to execute several documents, an interim project agreement. They have to provide a bill of sale. They have to provide insurance, naming you as an additional insured. They have to agree to indemnify you and hold you harmless. They have to execute an environmental compliance and indemnification agreement so that you are fully protected in the event that someone is injured on site, in the event that there's an environmental contamination. They have to sign documents holding you harmless from all of that.
You know what I've done, and the answer was.
Any other questions? Comments? Concerns? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the inducement resolution with the amended date of a temporary sales tax extension through September 30th, 2023?
So moved.
Thank you, Dirk. Is there a second? Second, Ricky. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Next up is the pilot resolution, Sue.
Yes. In your agenda is a resolution authorizing the execution and delivery of a pilot agreement that carries with it a 15-year pilot schedule. The 15-year pilot schedule is in accordance with your UTEP. There is no deviation. It is a priority commercial and residential pilot. They are located in the NRSA, and the schedule is attached to your resolution. For the record, as we all know, I just want to make it clear that the applicant will continue to pay 100% of real property taxes as they are due today. Those continue through the entire term of the pilot.
Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the pilot resolution as presented with the schedule included?
Make a motion.
Thank you, Ricky. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Dirk and Steve. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Next item is the final resolution.
Final resolution with respect to this project authorizes the agency to execute and deliver all of the necessary lease transactional documents to confer all of the benefits that have been previously awarded.
Questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Thank you, Ricky. Second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Congratulations. Thank you very much. I just want to say a couple of quick things. As James noted, our new project approval policy is focused on two new policies that became effective this year. One is a local hire requirement in your construction workforce of 10% city residents. The other is 10% of your benefit package will be awarded to MWBE vendors within our area. Additionally, I would urge everybody to read that project approval policy as well as everybody at Huber Brewer. There are other compliance requests that we, in exchange for the benefits, require you to submit to us. But thank you, good luck. We look forward to seeing it start. Oh, and this is our first city project, which is under the new permitting system for set-aside. So that'll be a very interesting, fun. We're excited about that as well.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, we're excited about that as well. So
There was a vote of confidence.
thank you all very much.
For you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is old business. I will just submit that in front of you we have, and also in your packet, the update from our first project under our new local hire and MWBE policy, which is TLSP CODA, or teaspoon as we call it. Eric, if you want to just quickly go through the summary for us, that would be great.
Right, I would be happy to. So as we've talked about with the board in previous meetings, the TLSP CODA project, and just for everyone to have their bearings, this is the multifamily housing development that is happening at the corner of Krause and East Genesee Street. The project itself is underway. They have exceeded with a large amount of excavation, demolition of the previous structures that were there, and then you're starting to actually see the elevator shafts are being constructed as you go by the site. In working closely with the general contractor, which is Huber Brewer, we have met with them and worked with them on a reporting system, a reporting template, and then being able to compile information over the last 3 months. So this essentially is a quarterly report that is dated from April to the end of June. We received this report earlier this month. So what I've done is just compiled the information. I'm going to start with the residency report and also give some information around the MWBE utilization as well. Now, one of the things I'll say, this is the first project since that new policy had gone into effect for the local approvals. And so in working through this, which has been extremely productive, and working with Huber Brewer to really compile that structure and provide a template, this is the first time we're presenting this information to the board, so happy to answer questions or hear any feedback. One of the things that we're doing, you'll recall, there is a 10% requirement for local workforce utilization. So the very first report I'm going to direct you to is the one that has the red draft text, just saying CODA on Krause, City of Syracuse residency report. As you're looking at that, what this has done is it has listed out the contractors that are on site and actually undertaking work on the project at this time. That is a total of approximately 80 individuals. And so through this reporting system that we've developed in these templates, the subcontractors in total based on city residency, and we have the ability to verify these addresses, that is a total of 15 individuals who have been on the project so far during this quarter. That results in approximately 19% of all workforce on the site over the last month, over the last 3 months in this quarter, are city residents and have that city residency. So you'll recall the goal was 10%. We are exceeding that goal. These numbers will continue to fluctuate. There will be more staff and more workforce on the site. So one of the things we'll continue to do is compile this information, present it to the board. This information as well will be posted under the project page on the site website as well.
Eric, are you able to ascertain if these are permanent positions or temporary hires?
So one of the things that we have been asking for greater clarity. Right now, what we've collected so far has been the individuals themselves that are on the site, not the status. They're full-time versus part-time or laborers or apprentices. But that is information that we can continue to work with the GC on and their subs.
Okay. One of the things that I'd like to gain clarity on, I know you can utilize temporary agencies, for example, to fulfill some of these needs. And in this instance, in regards to that being a permanent position or not, I'd like to know if these were through temporary agencies or, again, if they were permanent hires from city residents. So that clarity would be really helpful.
So by permanent hires, we mean part of the sub-team,
Yeah.
right? Like
yeah,
Catherine Murphy
absolutely,
contracting.
absolutely.
Right, okay. Okay,
Otherwise,
I
just in
understand what
terms
you're-
of being able to fulfill it temporarily, you could easily go through, use 2 months of labor from a temporary agency and meet the quota and.
yeah, I understand.
Which is better than nothing, but not what we're looking for.
Right. I mean, wages are still coming up.
Right.
And Eric, I have a quick, you provided a massive amount of detailed information in the package that we received, and just out of, I didn't get through it.
And
I
I-
looked
and-
at the summary.
okay.
So my question is, you have the detail by sub
Correct.
that totals the 80, the 15, and the 19%?
As you said,
I like it better this way.
I was just going to, as you said, a massive amount of information. I think our goal is to make sure that is easy to understand, comprehend, and part of the posting as well as this information is shared publicly. But as you said, we have all of the detail behind this as well.
Beautiful, thank you.
I just would suggest, I think, but I'd be curious to hear what everybody else thinks. This is the snapshot of the past quarter. Do we want somewhere, I believe, and I could be wrong, I have to go back and look, their total obligation over the 2-year construction period was 500 employees, roughly. They were going to have 500 construction workers on site. Therefore, our total requirement by our policy would be a minimum of 50 city residents over the course of the whole construction period. 2 years, I believe, is their time frame. Would we want that number here somewhere? You know what I mean? To keep the context going on the overall.
That's a great idea.
Rather than-
Imagine just to see how far along they
Right.
are.
Budget to
It helps
actual.
them as
Right,
well,
right.
actually.
It's like a budget to actual,
Yeah, just gives everybody sort of an idea of how easily or how difficult the challenge may be to meet our policy, right? Okay.
And not to stray too far into the woods, but I think, and especially Urban Jobs Task Force, I know if Aggie was here, she'd mention this specifically. But just related to the total amount of wages, I think it's really important, and they would have a snapshot of what they've put back into the local economy as well.
That we're going to have to talk about how we add that, because that's not part of our requirement
No,
at the moment.
no.
Yeah, okay. So I can't promise for the next quarter, because they probably already started, but it's on my list.
Gotcha.
Feedback is very helpful, though, so thank you.
MWBER, do you want to do a quick?
Yeah, so to shift to
update
the
before we
next page before you. So what this is again, similar to the 10% city residency workforce requirement, there is a 10% MWBE utilization. Now that 10% is based on the total exemptions coming from CITA and coming from the agency. In total, the Coda and Kraus project was receiving 19.970 million in total exemptions. So 10% of that amount, which you have in front of you, which breaks out to just under $2 million, but $1,997,000. What we've done, compiling and identifying the different category of whether it's an MBE or a WBE, minority or women-owned business, the contract amount, and then breaking through all the information that was provided to us from Huber Brewer. The one thing I will say, again, having this being the first report presented to the board, we are still very much going through this information and scoping it. But one of the things that we do want to just note is that total utilization number well exceeding that 10% utilization goal. This information, there will continue to be additional contracts, and as the project scales up, there will be additional firms involved with the project. But one of the things is, based on this quarterly report, based on the bulk of the contracts that have been executed at this time, not all the work has gotten yet underway with some of these firms, but we've been able to report that we're exceeding that 10% utilization goal.
Eric, just based on our previous conversations that led up to this, would it make sense to separate out the women versus minority-owned businesses?
They do in the
did
category.
Yeah, but I guess I mean in dollars. I can see that they're
Showing.
identified here, but.
Yep. In terms of presenting the information, that's absolutely something that we can do. It's just differentiate between the two categories. Sure.
And Eric, question for me. Obviously, I see the MBE. I see the total and roofing contracts, just over 1.1. Also notice the address was Springfield, Mass. So just in terms of local MBE, so obviously the concern among many of the contractors that I'm with is building capacity of our local contracting pool. And while this is great to have an MBE on site, I'm almost certain in my 20 plus years of doing this that I know local roofing MBEs with the capacity to fulfill this project as well. So my question would be, just in terms of how they are cultivating those local relationships, what are their avenues or pathways to making sure that they're tied in to our local MBEs and placing them to work? So this is great, but again, they're from Springfield, Mass, so technically we're sending the money out of the community.
So one of the things that we'll do, we are continuing, this has been dialogue that we're having, I think at this point weekly, the amount of back and forth we've been having with the GC and with Huber Brewer and with their team. So that's direct information we'll have.
Okay.
It also, I think, is helpful as we acknowledge other projects that are going to be having these requirements as well, and just how that dialogue continues with projects going forward. And your point, which is extremely well made, is that we're still going through scoping all the information, including that address, location. And then I think the last thing is we have really encouraged, and they've been a willing partner in this, is having more direct participation fairs and job fairs, but also firms for bidding on these types of jobs. Huber Brewing is doing a number of projects in the area. So I think we can get some more clarity on what specifically behind this particular contract from a roofing perspective. But one of the things we have emphasized time and time again, and Huber Brewer has heard us on, is being present and making these opportunities for bidding and making it a very open process. So good feedback, and I think something we'll take into consideration as this continues.
Also, I think it's helpful if they identified the areas where they potentially could be struggling. I, for one, Diversify New York specifically works with these contracting companies to help them identify those opportunities. For example, we brought up the fire safety installer from the previous project. So even on a quarterly basis, again, if they could identify areas potentially that they're struggling in, it would allow at least myself as an advocate to have time to cultivate a list to be able to meet those needs and demands, and at least, again, attempt to keep some of that money within the local economy.
I think also what, Ricky, is ensure that the project manager or another representative from Huber Brewer or whoever the GC is present for the next couple of meetings when we do this, so that we can get it, we're learning.
Yeah.
And we acknowledge that this is learning for everybody, and
Yes.
Northside's learning as they're here. So we need to make sure we're doing it right. And as you said, what are the problems and how do we help solve those? And certainly, as Eric indicated, the information we got on last week, we were pouring through it, trying to figure out what is what and making sure that everything is working the way it should. So.
Well, they've made the commitment. I mean, the dollar amount is there.
Right.
So it's not like they're struggling to get the money out the door. They've done that. They have identified an MBE. And so that's terrific. I think the effort and the commitment is already there. If we can just, I think it's an additional bonus, again, if we can find those contractors locally and just keep that within the local economy.
Ricky, in the normal course, in your experience, obviously the sub is based out of town. Are they hiring local workers to do the work?
Typically, they are. They are.
And
So with the issue there, so if they're on site for, again, 6 months, we do have the temporary labor of that 6 months. And I understand that those wages are still here, and at least we.
yeah, but the profits are going out of town.
The profits that, so there you go, Dirk, you identified.
No, I get it. I
that.
just,
Yeah.
I would think especially with something like a roofing sub.
Yep.
Clearly, they don't need to bring 30
Right.
people in from Springfield, Massachusetts, wherever it was.
Right.
They can tap it. That part of it's good. At least it's good for our gross domestic product.
And even if
But-
you're
but the
looking at the
profits
sunny
you want.
side of that, you know, what wages were they able to bring in? Although the profits are going out, right? They did keep at least the wages local. And so that's why I was saying if we could at least identify that, maybe it's a balance of saying, you know, the profit was 1.5, but we also brought in $2 million worth of local wages. You know, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I'll take it.
I'll work with their counsel on the policy and understanding the local aspects.
Bravo
Yes, bravo.
to you.
Yeah.
And I think the point you made a minute ago about inviting the GC, or having, you know, Huber Brewer, having Andy come in and talk about how they perceived what we're now asking and how reasonable it is. Wendy can, whatever, down the road, we're going to have to do this with lots of different folks. I'd like to make sure that we don't want to get to a point where the information we're asking for is such a burden or in a form that could be streamlined, and I assume you're taking care of a lot of that interaction.
Yeah, and so I think the other thing is taking this feedback, we'll make some modifications to how it's presented so that this encompasses some of what you've said this morning, so.
I think it also, Eric, as far as establishing a template for, again, this is essentially a pilot, right? And an opportunity for us to build a template and set the expectations from a baseline perspective of having the first company to go through here and not only meet the requirements. Thus far, they've exceeded where they are. It sets a baseline for any projects going forward. So, you know, just working out the minor details again of concentrating things locally, I think is just going to be an added bonus.
So in other words, we should move the 10% to 20% because it's so easy to get.
Already, right, Dirk?
I think this has also been very enlightening, working with the GC, with their subs, and I think just enlightening for all of us involved in this process to continue to ways to improve and modify and really achieve what we've set out to do with this new policy. So.
I would be remiss not to emphasize that I think Huber Brewer and their team, especially the project manager and Kim, who runs their office side of payroll, have been outstanding in trying to help give us the data and the information in a way that's useful and to get it from their subs. As you can imagine, that's not the easiest part of their job, you know, is getting everybody to stop and do the paperwork the way we want it done. So they have been really a great partner to all of this. We will continue to make improvements as we've discussed, but we have a really good team on the other side who I think will be very open to our concerns.
Not to be overly emphatic about this, but I think, you know, my question around this was obviously WBE is a pathway that many contractors, subcontractors take, and it sort of subverts the authenticity of the program when they can get around MBE requirements. So the thing that I'm actually most impressed about with this is that total allocation went explicitly to an MBE. If I could walk away with anything, I think that's the gold star on this. It would have been much easier, and typically we see that to fulfill it with WBE, but this had to take a concerted effort to make sure that those funds went directly to an MBE. So again, that's my primary takeaway from this.
Great.
And to the point that Dirk made as well is that what you'll see for the next report, it'll be broken out by those two differentiating categories, so it's a little easier to understand the totals.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments or concerns? And obviously, at any point in time, anybody has questions, ideas, new ideas, please let Eric or myself know, and we'll be happy to transmit them appropriately to the GC. If there is nothing else on that, we will finish that discussion, and I would ask for a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing real estate disposition. Shouldn't be too long. We will come back when we're finished. You're done, James. Thank you. Is there a motion? Thank you, Steve. Second?
Second.
Dirk, thank you. Willie will be back when we're done. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye, Chris.
No turning, Mike, so thank you.
Amy,